The door flew open so hard it cracked against the wall. Adaeze did not flinch. She had stopped flinching 3 weeks ago, somewhere between the moment she discovered the truth about her father and the moment she realized the man she had been forced to marry might be the only person in the world she could trust. Joon-Ho walked in. His jaw was tight. His eyes found her immediately, the way they always did now, as if some invisible thread had been tied between them without either of them agreeing to it. "They know," he said. "Who knows what?" "Everyone. About the pregnancy. About your father. About all of it." Adaeze set down the glass she was holding. Her hand was steady. Her heart was not. "Then we have a problem." Joon-Ho crossed the room in 4 steps and stood directly in front of her, close enough that she could see the tension behind his eyes, the thing he always kept controlled and locked away, the thing that had been slowly cracking open for weeks. "Adaeze." His voice dropped. "I need you to trust me." She looked at him for a long moment. This man her father had sold her to. This man whose world was built on silence and danger and power she still did not fully understand. This man who had, somehow, in the middle of all of it, become the person she did not want to lose. "Tell me one reason why I should," she said quietly. He held her gaze. "Because I am the only one in this entire world who does not want anything from you." The silence between them was heavy and real and full of everything they had not yet said. But to understand how they arrived at this moment, you have to go back. 6 months. One phone call. One father's secret that changed the course of everything. If you are new here, welcome. This channel is where African and Korean stories collide. And trust me, they collide hard. If this is your first time, hit that subscribe button right now, because this story is going to leave you breathless, and you will want to be here for part 2. And if you have been here before, you already know. Let's get into it. 6 months earlier, Adaeze Okafor was living a life she had built entirely by herself. She was 27 years old, a university lecturer in Lagos, with a small apartment full of books, a stubborn independence she wore like armor, and a complicated relationship with her father that she had spent years trying to quietly accept. Chief Emeka Okafor was a man of stature. Respected. Authoritative. He walked into rooms the way important men did, with an ease that suggested the world had always arranged itself for him. Adaeze loved him. She also knew, in the quiet way that daughters of powerful men often know things, that her father was not entirely what he appeared to be. She just did not know how deep it went. The call came on a Thursday evening. Her father's voice was warm, familiar, careful in the way it got when he wanted something. "Come home this weekend. I have something to discuss with you." She came home. She sat at his dinner table with the smell of jollof rice in the air and the sound of the television in the next room. And her father poured himself a drink and told her, almost casually, that he had arranged her marriage. "His name is Kang Joon-Ho," Chief Emeka said. "Korean family. Very powerful. Very respected. You will be well taken care of." Adaeze stared at him. "Baba, you cannot be serious." "I am completely serious. I am 27 years old. I have a career. I have a life. You cannot just..." "Adaeze." His voice shifted. "Just slightly. Just enough. This has been decided." She pushed back. She argued. She listed every reason this was unreasonable, impossible, out of the question. Her father listened to all of it with the patience of a man who had already made up his mind. And then he said 2 sentences that stopped her completely. "This family has debts you do not know about. Your cooperation protects all of us." She went quiet. That night, alone in her childhood bedroom, she lay on her back staring at the ceiling and understood that the word debts was not about money. It was never just about money. 3 days later, she searched the name Kang Joon-Ho. What the internet gave her was a man in expensive suits photographed at business events, never smiling, always flanked by people who looked like they were listening very carefully. There were whispers in business forums. A name that appeared near collapsed deals, rival companies that quietly dissolved, silence that seemed purchased rather than natural. She found exactly one interview, from 4 years ago, where a journalist had asked him how he described his business interests. He had looked at the camera for a moment before answering. "Comprehensive," he said, and smiled for the first and last time. She packed her bags 2 weeks later. Her best friend Kayamika stood in her apartment doorway and told her to run. Adaeze hugged her and said nothing because she already knew she could not run. Not yet. Not until she understood what her father had done and how deep the hole was. Seoul received her with cold air and gray skies and a driver who did not make eye contact. The house she was taken to was not a house. It was an architecture of power, a building that said in every line and every corner that the person who lived here was not to be questioned. She stood in the entrance hall with her single suitcase and felt, for the first time, truly alone. Joon-Ho arrived an hour later. She had braced herself for coldness. What she got was something more unsettling. He walked in, scanned the room, and his eyes landed on her for exactly 3 seconds before moving to his assistant. He spoke in Korean. The assistant, a quiet young man named Shin, translated. He says welcome to his home. Dinner is at 7. There are house rules. He will explain them tomorrow. Adaeze looked past Shin directly at Joon-Ho. Does he have nothing else to say to me? Joon-Ho paused, a beat too long. Then he looked at her, directly, fully, for the first time. Shin translated after a moment. He says you are braver than he expected. Then Joon-Ho walked out. She stood in that enormous entrance hall alone and thought, this is either the worst thing that has ever happened to me, or it is the beginning of something I cannot yet see. She was right about both. The rules came the next morning. They sat across from each other at a table large enough for 12 people, and Joon-Ho laid out the arrangement with the precision of a man who had rehearsed it. This was a contractual union. She would attend selected events. She would be photographed when required. She would not ask questions about his business. In return, she would want for nothing. Security, comfort, respect. And if I break one of these rules, she asked. Joon-Ho studied her. You won't. How are you so sure of that? The almost smile came and went so fast, she almost missed it. Because you are too intelligent to. She hated that she noticed the almost smile. She hated even more that it meant something to her. 3 weeks passed. They lived in the same house like two careful strangers, navigating the same spaces with elaborate politeness. But Adaeze was watching. That was the thing about her that Joon-Ho had not yet understood. She was always watching. She noticed the way his shoulders dropped by exactly 2 degrees when he was alone. She noticed that he drank his coffee standing up, always by the east window, always looking at the city below like he was measuring something against it. She noticed that he had a habit of pausing outside the door of a room before entering, as if he was always preparing himself for whatever was inside. She filed all of it away and said nothing. Then came the night that changed the temperature between them. A storm knocked the power out at 9 in the evening. The backup generator covered the security systems and nothing else. The house went dark and quiet, and Adaeze was halfway down the main staircase with a candle when Joon-Ho appeared from the study below, holding a flashlight, and they nearly collided at the bottom step. They ended up in the sitting room. No phones, no assistants, no performance. Tell me something true about yourself, Adaeze said. Joon-Ho looked at her as if she had asked a question in a language he had not spoken in a long time. Why? Because we have no electricity and nothing else to do, and I am tired of pretending we are not two real people sitting in the same room. The silence stretched. Then he said, I inherited this life. I did not choose it. What would you have chosen? He was quiet for so long she thought he would not answer. Then, architecture. I wanted to build things. Structures that held weight without force. Adaeze looked at him in the candlelight. That's what you do now. Just with people instead of buildings. Something moved behind his eyes. Not offense. Something closer to recognition. What about you, he said. What did you choose? Teaching. I chose teaching because knowledge is the one thing that cannot be taken from a person once they have it. Is that why your father sent you here? Because you know too much? The room went very still. I don't know yet what my father did, she said carefully. But I'm going to find out. Joon-Ho looked at her for a long moment. When you do, he said quietly, come to me first. She filed that away too. The following week she discovered she was pregnant. She was alone in the bathroom of the East Wing at 6 in the morning. The test was face down on the edge of the sink. She knew before she turned it over. She had known for days in the way the body tells you things before your mind is ready to accept them. She turned it over. She looked at it for a very long time. Then she folded it, put it in the pocket of her robe, walked to the window, and looked out at the city of Seoul coming alive in the early morning light. Inside her chest, 1,000 things were happening at once. Fear, grief, something that was not quite hope, but was adjacent to it. This baby had not been planned. This baby was growing in the middle of a marriage she had not chosen, in a country that was not hers. between two people who were still learning whether they could trust each other. And yet, she thought about her mother. Her mother who had died when Adaeze was 9, quietly and without drama. The way some women disappear from the world before the people who need them most have finished needing them. She thought about what her mother would say right now. She thought she probably knew. Her mother had always said that the circumstances of a beginning do not determine the size of what grows from it. She pressed her palm flat against the cold window glass. Below her, Seoul moved and breathed and carried on, completely indifferent to the fact that everything had just changed. She told no one. Not yet. Her father arrived 10 days later, unannounced, with 2 suitcases and a wide smile and the practiced ease of a man who believed his sins were well buried. Adaeze held him. She breathed him in. She loved him with the complicated love of a daughter who had not yet stopped loving the person her father once was. But she was watching. She watched her father and Joon-Ho together for 2 days. She watched the way Joon-Ho's entire posture changed in her father's presence. A kind of controlled wariness, like a man standing near something unstable. She watched her father talk too much and laugh too loud, the way people do when they are managing something. She watched and said nothing and waited. The 3rd night, she could not sleep. She came downstairs at midnight and heard voices from the study. The door was not fully closed. She stopped in the dark hallway and stood very still. Her father's voice first. The arrangement was 5 years. I held up my end. Then Joon-Ho's voice, quiet and precise and cold in a way she had not heard from him before. Your end was a debt, Emika. Blood money. You think a marriage settles that? She doesn't know anything. She's smarter than you think. I have noticed. Silence. Then her father, lower. The agreement was that this stays buried. Things that are buried have a way of coming up. Especially when the person who buried them is standing in my house, drinking my whiskey, pretending to be a man of honor. Footsteps moving toward the door. Adaeze pressed back into the dark and held her breath. Her father walked out of the study and down the corridor and did not see her. She stood in the dark for a long time after that, her hand pressed flat against the wall, her mind working through everything she had just heard. Blood money. A debt. 5 years. A marriage's payment. She had suspected. Now she knew. The next morning she confronted him. She found him in the garden, drinking tea like a man with nothing to hide, and she sat across from him and folded her hands on the table and looked at him with the steadiness of someone who had been up all night deciding exactly how to do this. Tell me about the blood money, Baba. The teacup stopped halfway to his mouth. Adaeze. Don't. Her voice was quiet, but it cut. Do not manage me right now. Tell me what you did. Chief Emika set the cup down. He looked at his hands. He looked at the garden. He looked everywhere except at his daughter. And then, piece by piece, in the halting way of a man who had kept a secret so long he had almost convinced himself it was not a secret, it came out. Years ago, he and Joon-Ho's father had been business partners. A development deal. Large sums of money. Chief Emika had found a way to redirect funds. Not steal, he said. He used the word redirect. Adaeze noted it. And when the business collapsed, Joon-Ho's family took the full weight of the failure. A cousin, a man in his 30s with a wife and children. He had lost everything in the collapse. He had not survived the loss. Joon-Ho's father had known, had tracked it, had waited. The marriage was not tradition. It was reparation. Adaeze was collateral offered to buy silence. She sat with it, the full weight of it. Her father watched her face, and she gave him nothing. You gave me to a Mafia boss, she said finally, to cover a dead man's money. To protect this family. To protect yourself. Her voice did not rise. It went colder. I am 3 months pregnant, Baba, with the child of the man you handed me to like a debt settlement. And you sat at his table and drank his whiskey and smiled. Chief Emika's face crumpled. He reached for her hand. She moved it. She stood up. She walked back into the house. She did not look back. That afternoon, Sena arrived. Adaeze had seen her twice before at events. A Korean woman of extraordinary composure, always near the edges of rooms, always watching Joon-Ho with the precise attention of someone who had once been allowed closer and had not forgotten it. Adaeze had filed her away, noted the history without asking for it. Sena found her alone in the east sitting room and sat across from her with the directness of a woman who had decided on honesty as a strategy. You should know what you are here, Sena said. You are a transaction, a seal on an old agreement. He will never give you what you actually want. Adaeze looked at her calmly. And what do I actually want? Him. The real him. The one no one else gets to see. Senna's voice was precise and painful. I had that once. He took it back. Why are you telling me this? Because you deserve to know before you make the mistake of falling completely. Adaeze studied her. The pain behind Senna's composure was real and deep and had been carried a long time. She felt something unexpected, not rivalry, not anger, something closer to recognition. Two women who had both been shaped by the same man's world without being asked. Thank you for telling me, Adaeze said. Senna blinked. That is all. I'm still deciding what to do with the information. Senna left, and Adaeze sat for a long time in the quiet room, her hand resting on her stomach, thinking about what it meant to fall for someone you were never supposed to trust. She thought about the rules Joon-Ho had laid out that first morning, the careful architecture of distance he had built between them. She thought about the power outage and the candlelight and the way he had said, I wanted to build things that held weight without force, and how that sentence had lived in her ever since like a splinter she could not quite reach. She thought about every almost smile, every pause at the threshold of a room, every moment he had looked at her and then immediately looked away, as if looking too long was a risk he was not yet prepared to take. She was not naive. She understood that wanting to trust someone and being able to were different things entirely. But she also understood something Senna had not said. That whatever Joon-Ho had been before, something in the last 2 months had been quietly, undeniably shifting. And she had a feeling that what she was about to tell him on that rooftop would finish the shift completely. Seoul spread below them, all light and height and distance, and she was standing at the railing when she heard his footsteps behind her. He came to stand beside her. Not close enough to touch, close enough to matter. I spoke with your father today, he said. So did I. He turned to look at her. How much do you know? Everything. The word landed between them. He did not look away. He did not perform surprise or reach for a correction. He just held her gaze with the particular honesty of a man who has been waiting for this and is relieved it has finally arrived. I want to tell you something, he said. Tell me. I went to my father last week. I told him I want to dissolve the arrangement. Not the marriage, the arrangement, the debt, the transaction, all of it. Adaeze turned to face him fully. The city lights caught the angles of his face, and she thought, not for the first time, that he was a man who looked most himself when he was not performing anything. Why? She asked. Because you are not a debt settlement. His voice was low and certain and unguarded in a way she had not heard from him before. And I am done pretending I do not see you. The silence that followed was the loudest kind. The kind that holds everything that has not yet been said and makes room for it. Joon-Ho. Her voice was steady. She had decided. Right here, on this rooftop, she had decided. I'm pregnant. He stilled. Not the stillness of shock. The stillness of a man absorbing something that changes the entire weight of every decision in front of him. How long have you known? He asked quietly. 3 months. And you said nothing. I needed to know who you were first. She held his gaze. I needed to know if you were the man my father sold me to, or someone else. And now I think you might be someone else entirely. He looked at her for a very long time. Then, slowly, carefully, as if it were something he was learning to do for the first time, he reached out and took her hand. Just that. Just her hand in his, standing above a city of 10 million people with a secret between them that was about to detonate. I will protect you, he said. Both of you. I know. You trust me. She looked at their hands, at the city below, at the man beside her who had arrived in her life as a punishment and had become, without her permission, something she wanted to fight to keep. I'm starting to, she said. What neither of them knew, what Adaeze would not discover until the following morning, was that downstairs, in a quiet corner of the house, Chief Emeka had made a phone call. He told himself it was protection. He told himself it was the only move left. He had found out that Joon-Ho had gone to his father to dissolve the agreement, and he had understood what that meant. The deal was unraveling. The silence he had purchased was expiring. And a desperate man with a buried secret does not go quietly. He dialed a number. A rival of Joon-Ho's. A man who had been circling for years, looking for the right leverage. I have information, Chief Emeka said. About the pregnancy. About the deal. About everything. He spoke for 6 minutes. When the call ended, he sat alone in the dark room and looked at his hands. The hands of a man who had spent 20 years telling himself he was protecting his family while slowly dismantling everything inside it. The next morning, Adaeze received a message. Unknown number. 3 words. Your father called. She read it once. She looked up from her phone. Joon-Ho was across the breakfast table, watching her face. What is it? He asked. She set the phone down and looked at him with the particular clarity of a woman who has burned through every illusion and arrived at the bare truth of what she is dealing with. My father just made everything worse, she said. Joon-Ho stood up slowly. How much worse? She slid the phone across the table. He read it. His jaw tightened. He looked up at her, and for a moment, they simply held the reality of it between them. The danger, the exposure, the fact that the man who was supposed to protect her had instead handed her to the wolves to save himself one final time. We move today, Joon-Ho said. Where? Somewhere they cannot reach you until I handle this. Joon-Ho. She stood. I am not going anywhere without answers. I am done being moved around this story like I am not the one living it. He looked at her. The city was loud outside. The house was quiet. And in the space between them was everything. The child, the truth, the danger, the beginning of something neither of them had asked for and neither of them was willing to let go. Then stand here with me, he said, and let's face it together. She walked around the table and stood beside him, and that was the moment. Not the wedding, not the contract, not the arrangement made by a guilty man in a desperate hour. This moment, 2 people choosing each other with full knowledge of what it costs. What comes next will break things open completely. The rival has the information. The father has exposed them. And somewhere in the city below, a meeting is being called that will force Joon-Ho to make a choice between the empire he inherited and the family he is just beginning to build. If you have made it this far, I need you to do 3 things right now. Subscribe to this channel because part 2 is coming and you do not want to miss what happens next. Drop a comment below. Tell me, did Adaeze make the right choice trusting Joon-Ho, or is she walking into a bigger trap? And share this video because your people need to see this story. Like it while you are at it. It takes 2 seconds and it means everything. Part 2 drops soon. And when it does, nothing will be the same. The secrets are out. The danger is real. And 2 people who were never supposed to matter to each other are about to find out exactly how much they do. Stay close.